welcome to the panelists. Before I came in for this session, I was wondering whether I should get like a little bit of a formal shirt or something, but then I decided to go with Thor, given the theme of the day. But I see some of you are immaculately dressed, so my apologies for turning up in a nice little Thor shirt, but I thought it goes with the theme. But thank you. I can just see Saloni, Sajan Raj and Milan on the screen. Prashant is just about to come up, but welcome today. I was just going through some statistics on the gaming industry, and I saw a Forbes report that said it was about 160 billion last year, but then I saw another report from earlier this year which said it's 300 billion globally with 30% CAGR. Of course, in India, we're seeing some good numbers. It seems like we're about 1 to 2% of the global industry. Much better CAGR, and I'm sure for most of you that's interesting news. But we saw about $500 million go into this segment between August 20 and Jan this year, and we had Nazara in the news, Dream 11 in the news, couple of other big players coming up. A report that I saw said that investments are going to double in the next 12 to 18 months. And I think having all of you here gives us an interesting perspective into understanding where this is going. Can we do better than this? And what are the pitfalls that we probably see? So that it's a work from home pitfall that we all face. But just to kick off with, I'm just going to go around the table. If you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself for the audience, what's your outlook on the gaming industry from an investment perspective over the next 12 to 18 months, as well as how you see the traction that's been happening in the past 18 months, especially even though nothing good's come out of the pandemic, but work from home and sitting at home has been a bit of a driver for this industry. So can we kick off with Saloni? Hi.
Hi everyone. Happy to give a quick intro. I'm Saloni Sehgal. I am currently the general partner at Umikai. We are India's first dedicated gaming and interactive media VC. I've been fortunate to see gaming as an industry for over the last 15 years from all sides of the table. I've been an investor, an entrepreneur, and a former M&A private equity specialist. Prior to this, I used to be with a fund called London Venture Partners, which is the leading European gaming VC. Had a track record of backing over 50 companies, which delivered over $15 billion in value, including companies like Supercell, Trinity, Natural Motion, Fish, which are now pretty much household names. Before that, I was the CEO and co-founder of Truly Social, which was a venture-backed gaming studio building immersive social world for female audiences, and then spent the first 6-7 years of my life in investment banking and private equity with over $10 million in M&A experience. Covered the sector for a very long time. India as a market has now hit inflection point. I've spent a very large part of my career tracking both global and the domestic market, and some of the markers that we're seeing in India, whether it's from a gaming adoption perspective, payments infrastructure, monetization perspective, we've never seen before. India is now entering into the top grossing charts of many of our strategic investors who are some of the world's largest multi-billion-dollar gaming and media companies. And it really is the golden age of India's interactive entertainment. So very happy to be here.
All right, thanks for that intro, Saloni. We appreciate you being here today. Quickly moving to Sajan Raj. Hi, Sajan. How are you?
That's the most spoken line of the last whole year. That you're on mute.
No, my most spoken line is my dog just barked, so I'm one of the unlucky ones, I guess.
Yeah. No, nice to be here, Prasad. Yeah. So just a quick thing about where I come from. I'm a new guy as far as the gaming industry is concerned. I'm a creative guy. Fundamentally, I've built brands. Right. I've spent 2.5 decades building incredibly amazing brands. Right. And I'm also a sort of a closet gamer. I sort of spend quite a bit of time whenever I can, and I've always been interested in this from a very different perspective. One is obviously, I know that gaming is now become like a really big buzzword in buzz phrase as far as the whole investment industry is concerned. but I wanted to sort of believe in the purity of things and sort of wanted to sort of back something which is founded by a gamer himself, who's somebody who understands it. And again, gaming is such a vast term, right? Today, everything is clubbed as gaming, right? Or everything is clubbed as e-sport, right? Today, for example, for us, there is a certain skill set which is required. This is not. It's not just sweepstakes kind of a space that we're very clearly carving out for ourselves. There's a whole lot of opportunity in this country, and I'm amazed at the extent with which it can be converted into media. For example, the reach that happens here, right? Some of the guys that we have when we look at our streamers, the kind of background that they come from, the kind of languages that they speak, the way it's just to me, I'm like a kid in a candy store right now, just exploring this world, and I'm enjoying it, right? So we have like a pocket full of dreams, really incredibly early stage as far as this country is concerned. I think we have some great teams, great talent who's come on board. So I'm all excited, right? And I'm here to learn as much as I can. And whatever backing that we can give will be great. I mean, we have to build this as a beautiful sort of an industry. And this industry must belong to people who have the skill set and the passion for it, and not just the money for it, right? So I'm here for that.
All right, thanks, Sajjan. So I think interesting perspective on being a kid in a candy store. I think for most of us, some of us who grew up playing Atari and Dig Dog on computer, etc., right? It's a very different world. Some of the stuff that's on mobile is way ahead of what we grew up as with kids. So I think great, exciting time. Thanks for that, Sajjan. But let me move to Milan. Hi, Milan. How are you?
Belong to this industry at all. So I was running a fintech company called Miles Software, which I sold it in 2018 to a company called Apex, and I was running that company until this time. And I have currently actually founded a couple of fintechs, and I'm running them. So gaming is absolutely a new area. Honestly, I never played games in my childhood as well, but obviously this pandemic got me to play games, and which is what got me to interest into saying gaming is an area which is of a great investment potential, because I'm more of a financial guy running a technology on that. So completely different world for me, and which is where I'm wearing a shirt and not a t-shirt. So that really shows that. So I deal with the banks and mutual funds and insurance companies. So this is completely new to me. But yeah, I looked at backing somebody who's been kind of a seasoned player, likes of Nazara. So they knew this industry very well. I said, let me bet safely with somebody who really understands, who's been into this business for so long. But and I've been trying to help some of these small gaming companies who've been trying to kind of gamify a lot of fintech areas. So there are a lot of areas which people are looking to gamify. Always look to gamify my own application, like a robo-advisor stuff and so on and so forth. But that's a very, very different world in what the world I'm kind of trying to learn things. So obviously, to me today is a learning session. I don't know much about it, but I've taken a plunge into it. So let's see if it works well for me or not. Yeah, but I'm pretty excited with looking at the growth numbers and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Sure, Milan. I think it's learning every day for all of us as well. And I think very interestingly, like with social media, I think gaming is also now, while the fun aspect of it, the gamer aspect of it is still building up or continues to build up. Stuff like gamification for fintech or gamification for let's say social development. I think a lot of that stuff is coming up, and I think we look forward to that kind of stuff as well. To kind of benefit overall, sectors which wouldn't be originally identified with gaming. So thanks for those inputs, Milan. We appreciate it. I'd like to say hi to Sriram now. Sriram, how are you? Great to have you here.
Thanks, Prasad. Glad to be on this panel. So let me start with the introduction. So pretty much I've been gaming all my life. So I was part of the party and founding team straight out of college. This was way back in 2002. And I was party gaming all throughout the blitz scaling and then the subsequent IPO on the London Stock Exchange. And after that, I built a company called Cozy Games, which became the second most prevalent bingo network operator in UK. So I sold that to Entain PLC in 2017. And along the way in 2012, we also started the Indian gaming business, which we still continue to grow and run quite aggressively. So I've seen the early stages of gaming in India, the fully hyper-regulated, extremely complex gaming laws in UK and Europe. And it's been a very interesting journey to see both sides of the world.
So we're seeing the whole spectrum of experiences in the segment, right? And I think that's another fresh perspective. So thanks for that, Sriram. I'd like to move on to Saurabh now. Saurabh, hi. Welcome to the panel.
Hi Prasad, hi everyone. Super, very, very interesting panel, and compared to all everyone's experience in this, I'm completely a new kid on the block in terms of the gaming space. So small background, I'm the co-founder of a startup called Elo. We are a live social gaming and live streaming platform where content creators, influencers go live and they host games which are absolute indigenous games like Tambola, Musical Chairs, Antakshari, Chidiya Ud, all of these games live for their fans and followers, and it's sort of a way for users to interact and see a real-time dimension of their creators, and for creators to showcase their entertaining and game show host kind of side, so bringing that interactive live TV side for the audience. So I come from a founder background towards this panel. So prior to Elo, I was sort of at Flipkart for about 5 years. So completely different background. I used to be a category leader there, manage certain categories, took them from a 0 to 1 sort of a startup. Very passionate about content and gaming both in general. So used to be a content creator myself, ran a couple of YouTube channels. I do part-time stand-up comedy and some open mic nights and stuff. So the whole fascination towards bringing in content and gaming together was something that got me really excited towards starting Elo. And recently we just closed our PA. So the topic over here is very relevant because the kind of interest that the space has, what tailwinds we are seeing over the past 3 to 4 months. So I remember you saying, Prasad, that while nothing good really, of course, can happen in the lockdown, the only silver lining that I could see within the space of content and gaming was that the amount of time people have spent in games and in this space over the past 2 months has been incredible. I mean, we've seen daily engagement times go almost 2x in the past few months. So I think really, really exciting times for this sector, and it's probably only just getting started. So yeah, great to be on the panel.
Right, thanks. So of course, the founder's perspective is always interesting, and completely unrelated. But your company name sounds very similar to a sitcom that was there long ago called LOLO. And since you're a part-time comedian, I'm sure in the future when we interact, we'll see some comedy around that.
Whether it's LOLO, Elo, is it a trip off? That's why I like that. I never disclosed what the actual pronunciation is. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, every conversation can get you some lateral memories flowing. But great to have you here. The last panelist that we have on the panel is Prashant. Hi Prashant, how are you? Great to have you here.
I'm doing good and happy to be on this panel. A very diverse crowd here. So I'll just start off with a little bit of introduction about myself. I've been a gamer all my life. I grew up on console games and then moved on to PC games. I've been a consumer for the last 25 years, a very hardcore consumer. I mean, come from a generation where parents used to frown upon my hobby as a gaming, and now I've turned that into my profession. So I grew up traveling the world, attending gaming summits, gaming events rather. Yeah, when games like Counter-Strike and Dota were small, and I saw them evolve over time and become the monster community they are today. And professionally, I've been a data scientist, a product manager, business strategy head, and now I'm an entrepreneur. And today we're building games for the Indian audience. We started in 2020. We've achieved some very good traction. Our philosophy in the Indian market is we want to identify games with cultural cunning, and it's very you see this trend where similar to the entertainment industry, how the movie industry releases one hit movie every year, one or two hit movies, apart apart from the hundreds of movies they release, right? The gaming industry follows a similar pattern. You see one or two titles that come out every year in casual games, and you see a trend starting from Angry Birds, Pokemon Go, PUBG, Ludo King. Every year there's a phenomenon in terms of a new game coming out. So, and a lot of these games, you see a strong cultural connect with offline behavior. Pokemon Go was prevalent in culture, and that translated into success in the gaming sector. And Ludo was something like that. And PUBG was a phenomenon that borrowed from esports, where Unreal Tournament, Counter-Strike, that kind of gaming habits became more accessible through mobile. And you see that in card-based games, poker, rummy, these kind of games are more see a lot of success because of their cultural affinity offline, right? So as long as we start building games with cultural affinity, we believe that there's huge opportunity in India. India is a market with very diverse cultural behavior. We have very rich stories and habits in different states, and there's a lot of opportunity to just build products for all these segments in India.
All right, thanks, Prashant. Thanks for that insight. So, I think I'd like to now circle back to the panel with some of the key points that I thought we could discuss. So, I think, look, obviously it's been an industry that's been evolving over a long period of time, like Prashant just said. But in the last, at least in India, the last 18 months and, over the globe, over the last 2-3 years, 4-5 years, we've seen the gaming industry explode into a huge investment opportunity. But as people from different different perspectives, how do you see it kind of getting into the B2C consciousness now over the past few years? Where do you see it standing on the consumer evolution life cycle? And most importantly, what's the next big thing for them? One thing we've seen with e-commerce, for example, in India, is that market penetration has seen valuation shoot up, but now we're trying, even the Zomato went off really well, but I think the wall that we're trying to that we're beginning to hit is what's the next new value generator, what's the next big value generator, what's the path to profitability. So let me come back to Salone first and get your thoughts on where on these points.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, very happy to give our perspective. We've been in the market for a very long time from a global and a local perspective, and I think what's been interesting in the India market is from a macro perspective. We all know the stats. An average Indian is consuming 12 GB of data. The biggest beneficiaries of that have been gaming and digital content. Last year, India consumed 10 billion gaming apps. So all these macro stats are out there for everybody to see. I think that what is more interesting is the opportunity set, right? Now, India has traditionally been an import market for gaming, right? In the sense that you've had foreign publishers essentially marketing their games in India, and that has basically meant that the opportunities for Indian developers have been limited for a variety of reasons. So payment infrastructures were not there, access to capital was not there, talent was not there, so they were fairly hamstrung, or they were doing low-hanging fruits or just doing publishing deals which didn't make sense. All of that, I guess, has transformed because 2020, the digital acceleration has meant that India's gaming revolution, which was probably 3-4 years down the line, has now has moved ahead. So that's very critical to understand. And having mapped markets like China back in 2004, 2005, we're at a very similar inflection point as India at this point in time, right? And China in 2004, 60% of revenue accrued to foreign publishers. But by 2007, 70% of the revenue accrued to domestic publishers. So the market took 3 years to completely transform, and there were many markers through that. And we always talk about those markers, but India is seeing that already. Now, whether it's the payment infrastructure, whether it is the rise of techno-nationalism, where people are now talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat and talking about self-reliant India and building games for India. The role of capital infusion, IPOs happening, liquidity happening. All of that is, creates a very potent cocktail for gaming to really emerge. And this is what, we have seen 700 gaming deals in the last 10 months alone. We've made 5 investments. We're very proud to back LOL, Saurav's here as well. And it's a fantastic testament to how the gaming market has very, very quickly evolved. And there have been 4 or 5 themes that we are tracking very closely, which we have obviously invested in. The way we look at the gaming sector is, broader. So we look at content. So within content, we look at casual, mid-core, hyper-casual, core titles. We look at platform plays because there's a massive white space in India to create gaming-first platforms. We've also done a deal called Roku, which is a mobile-first game streaming platform, the equivalent of Twitch for the India market. We look at tool stack and we look at infrastructure. What is very important to understand is that Indian gamers have not had the trajectory of, let's say, some of the Western markets. The Western markets went from arcade games to boxed games to consoles to PCs to mobile and various business models. In India, that's not been the case. You've had millions of smartphone users embrace mobile for the very first time, but they've also been exposed to gaming, video chats, audio chat, messaging, all at the same time. It's a very complex digital sociology to unpack, right? And to build for that requires very India-first thinking. And Indian gamers are multiplayer and they're social. It's very important to understand that. So when we look at opportunities, we're very big on social gaming. We're very big on regional language gaming experiences. We're very big on experiences and platforms which can open up to non-traditional gaming audiences. LOL is a classic example of that. 57% of the user base is women, 80% of the creators are women. It's one of gaming's massive white spaces. Mid-core gaming in India, the Indian gamer is becoming increasingly sophisticated, but there's very less India-first IP devoted to it. So it's there's plenty of opportunities in the India gaming market, and we're at ground zero.
I think great perspective there, Saloni. I think while excellent points that you made throughout, but I think the last cap off that you did, that we are at ground zero, actually kind of sums it up. We are on the launch pad now, and I think we can take off really well. And from there, I think it's a good point to come back to Milan for some additional perspective, right? Because like you spoke about gamification as something that you're looking at in the fintech space. How do you see gaming evolve beyond? So Saloni spoke about white spaces from the from a developer perspective, from a user perspective, right? But what about white spaces from a application perspective? What are the other white spaces that you see? How do you see it evolving over the next few years?
So yeah, Saloni's covered a very large ground, but just to add to that is, obviously I come from a fintech background, so I think there is a great opportunity, convergence in various tech stuff where how do you use gaming for education, which is, to my mind, people have tried it, but I think there is a massive opportunity where how do you really convert some of those ideas so that, and what kind of funding EdTech has already received and it's continued to receive. So I think the next big step to my mind is EdTech and FinTech, which has to converge with the game tech, so that how do you really kind of educate people? How do you really kind of really teach them by games? I think the best way to communicate to people is via movies and games, and all of us have got addicted to a game. As I told you, I was never playing game for 20 years. Now I spend at least half an hour playing bridge every day online. And as Saloni very rightly said, we're kind of a social, so we friends get together, play some poker and bridge online. But obviously, if there are stock exchange games or there are educational games which people would love to kind of give it to their kids because everything is parental controlled. So you want to make sure that there is enough area in these two spaces, which I feel is a great opportunity. The fintech and the edtech space converging with game tech, which I am pretty excited about. This is what I understand, unfortunately, and this is where I understand. I don't hardly understand these other games, so I'm so bloody novice to this, unfortunately. Everything is new to me.
I can identify with that, Milan. I think, like I was saying, that as a kid, I was a lot into some of these games, but of late, it's more of the cerebral stuff that you want to go into, but all the excitement is around the flashy stuff. But so let's hope some of the cerebral stuff and the lateral stuff comes into vogue, so that people like us can also put up our hands and say we know something about it. But thanks for those inputs, Milan. Sajan, we've heard some very varied perspectives on how the gaming industry is evolving, what are the opportunities from both Saloni and Milan, and obviously, as we went around the table for introduction. So how do you see, the industry evolving in the country, and what do you see in terms of it creating investor interest?
So here's the thing. For me, there's a huge difference between gaming as a whole, when we look at it, and esport. I am clearly carving out esport. That's what I am really sort of putting my bets on, right? And when I say esport, it's professional, competitive, video gaming. It's that's the space that I'm sort of looking at. This is where I just feel, and I'm here to play a sort of a long ball. I'm not trying to just do something quickly and see whether let's cash in, right? I think there's so much, and then Saloni says that we are at ground zero. We are like at ground -1, right now, because there's infrastructure to be built on this, right? Today, and I'm telling you that every day, today when I have a chat with Rohit, then pretty much, I believe in the Jack Ma way of working, which is expert and a generalist. I'm the generalist here, and I love going out there and putting out things which someone who's an expert may not be able to see, right? I mean, I'm trying to sort of open out that entire horizon. As a gamer, you think in a particular way, right? If you look at it, even if you were to read the entire EY report and all that, right? It talks about how the prize pool is going to probably account for almost 10% of the entire gaming. The value that the gaming sort of brings in, right? So there is a whole lot of investments to be made in actually nurturing talent in this country. We have some amazing esport players, right? And we have now interacted with most of them. We've actually built about 5 different game bases where they can sit and sort of play, whether it's Call of Duty, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's even PUBG. We probably have one of the best teams out here, and we're already sort of competing at the World Cup now. Right, there is a great chance. There are conversations on where it's going to be included in the Olympics. So there's a whole lot of. I think there's a certain stature that comes into this entire gaming industry by actually getting esport a lot more recognized. Right now, obviously there are regulatory challenges. There are misconceptions that esport is like gambling, game of chance. I mean, all of those sort of things. We don't have a nodal body. There is no clarity as far as regulatory parts are concerned. There are multiple ministries that this could probably come under. So there is a lot of work, and what I'm looking at doing for at least the next 2-3 years is going to be about really sort of contributing to the infrastructure of this, right, and take this up seriously. Apart from this, the other thing that I'm very excited about is the fact that there's a lot of talent. I mean, we've run about 23 different academies now, right? And where we are sort of tutoring these guys. There are really interesting ways of actually getting people involved, and we're working directly with the publishers themselves. There is a great opportunity to really create, Indian. Somebody on the panel was talking about, cultural context. There is a great opportunity to really take some of our cultural context and create esport, sort of games around that their entire thing. So, to me, one of the most important things that I'm really sort of invested in and funding for is the creation of this infrastructure that is really required, and I think it'll go a long way, as far as esport is concerned in this country.
I think great perspective there, Sajan. I think from an infrastructure perspective and the say-no culture of our regulatory landscape, I think it applies not just to this domain but all domains, because the kind of innovation and the kind of massive growth that we see in every sector that we kind of apply capital to, it's only restricted by infrastructure and the regulator.
Just wanted to add one more thing. Even if you look at, I'm saying that when you look at somebody streaming and playing this, and it's as exciting as IPL. or Formula One, right? If you see two of these guys play, and just the sheer skill set that they have, right? When you start appreciating it, it's like Tendulkar batting. Okay, अगर Tendulkar खेल रहा है तो उसका square cut ऐसा रहेगा. Virat Kohli का. There is such a lot of skill that is involved in this entire thing, and I become a fan of some of our own players, right? When I look at them play, how do you have these kind of reflexes, right? And it's incredible suddenly when you look at it. So it's not just about chance, it's not just about that, but there is serious. I mean, these guys are real, they're athletes. We don't even call them, they're not players, they're actual athletes, right? And I think we need to bring them, give them that stature. Right. So for me, my investments are going to go into that. And I think if you can really create, we are great with tech. If you look at our minds are pretty interesting, right? It's just a question of giving them the opportunity. And some of our gamers come from very modest backgrounds, but the skill set that they carry, I've just become a massive fan.
Thanks for that perspective, Sajan. Sriram, so you've heard again, like I said, different perspectives from different panelists. How do you see the investment opportunity evolving in this segment, and what is it that the companies can do to make themselves more attractive to investors?
I think a very important point was made by Saloni saying that the gaming industry is at an inflection point. So let me break that down and basically say what are the challenges that have been resolved and what are the challenges that should be resolved going forward, right? So when we started off way back in 2012, you were struggling for everything, right? You wouldn't get a payment gateway from a bank, right? And you go to any advertiser, now there's TV ads, there's mainstream advertising going all over the place, but you have to struggle with legal opinions even to get a CDN account, right? So that was a challenge, your SMS gateway would, ask to prove your legitimacy and stuff like that. So a lot of that infrastructure related issues and challenges have been more or less resolved. If you ask me what are the two challenges that the industry needs to overcome, I think payments is still a little bit of a challenge because sometimes the UPI infrastructure can be a little bit problematic because of loading at the bank end. But I think that will resolve itself as we go along. The bigger challenge is the regulatory headwinds. So we've seen last year there's been quite a lot of challenge, especially in the southern part of India. And as we keep going forward, especially last week, there's been great, progress made in that thing in terms of Rajasthan being quashed. We're expecting a positive judgment in Tamil Nadu on Tuesday next week. So I think the reverse trend is starting to happen, and I think that is very, very important from the investor's perspective because I don't think this industry needs to prove its potential anymore, right? That is basically beyond doubt, right? So the only hurdle basically is that, look, will this be challenged? Will this be forced to shut down? I think that's the only issue that needs to be answered. And I think that we will see very soon in a few weeks and days to come. We'll start seeing more answers coming in that front.
Sure, I think, like you were saying earlier also, I think that's the part that we struggle with, right? The fact that we have to go through these regulatory and legal minefields for everything new that's done, which puts actually Indian industry 5 or 8 years behind every new initiative, and then you have to really play catch up. We've done that catch up in a lot of segments, and I hope with gaming we can do that. But to move to Prashant, right? As a gamer, what is the perspectives that you're seeing that's aiding the evolution of the industry, and how do you see it becoming an investor? Of course, it's becoming one of the favorites for investors, but how do you see it staying stuck at the top and maybe even scaling up the investor choice scale, so to say?
So I'll just piggyback on what Saloni said. She's spot on saying we're at ground zero here. And I want to draw a parallel to what I've seen between 1990 to the last decade in the esports industry in North America and Europe. When gaming started off, it was mostly community driven. People after high school or college were doing LAN parties at home, and that was the community and multiplayer aspect of it. And from there, from being a single player focused games, developers like Blizzard Games, Riot and all, they started building out multiplayer games. This is the next stage of evolution where the community element got into this, and people started playing over the internet. And along with it, tournaments and sponsorship money that came into this. Sponsorship money because brands had a direct access to their consumers. Brands like Intel, Nvidia, AMD, gamers are there for consumers, right? So after LAN parties, there was an evolution into tournaments where this attracted advertising money and sponsorship money from the developers and different brands like this. And beyond this, the third stage of evolution was when it went into streaming. As a gamer, I used to be fascinated by just watching other people play. How Sajjan was mentioning, most of my time I spend on Twitch, and if I find some free time, I just watch replays of some tournaments or some pro players streaming their game, and the level of strategy thinking they use, the level of skills they displayed is nothing short of being an athlete. So there is this third stage of evolution where in streaming, I pay $50 to watch a tournament, and with this kind of money coming in from the player base, today gaming games like Dota, Counter-Strike have price pools larger than the US Open, larger than the IPL. It's mind-boggling. I mean, nobody would have heard about this. To think that games esports have price pools larger than traditional offline sports, but that's the reality. That's the kind of scale you are looking at. And in terms of advertising, you're attracting people. You're advertising brands from the tech industry. You're attracting brands from luxury industry. Mercedes-Benz, PSG, they're one of the top sponsors in gaming events right now worldwide. Now, that is what is happening worldwide, North America, Europe. In India, we're still at ground zero. We're still community driven. Most of the games, most of the platforms we see today are community driven in the sense that people pay to enter these games, people pay to compete against each other. There is a next stage of evolution where brands will start getting interested in this, and there will be a third stage of evolution where streaming will become a part of this, and people will pay to watch other pro players watch. And this is also going to ease regulation to a significant extent. Now, like Sriram mentioned, regulation is a big blocker in India, and it's inefficient how it is being done in India, regulation. Europe has a more mature and evolved regulatory model. North America has a more evolved regulatory model, and that is still yet to come into India. So there's stages of evolution that gaming will naturally go through, and in India, this will happen at a much more accelerated pace. What happened in Europe over 10 years will happen in India within a year or two. So this is also going to ease regulation for you and make it a more cleaner industry in terms of image, in terms of opportunities. Opportunity where it comes to the stages of evolution, there's still a long way to go for us, and things are going to start getting better from here. And there's another point Saloni mentioned, which is a personal pain point of mine. We are an import industry. If you want to start a gaming company in Europe or North America, you can just go to vendors like Playtech or Revolution Gaming. They're established partners who provide very solid tech stacks for you to start building solutions for. In India, because of how unique our games are, like you look at games like Ball Break, Ludo, foreign developers can't build these games. You need to be an Indian product manager and build these games. So there is a gap in building high quality games for the Indian audience, and this is a challenge that the Indian gaming consumer is working with, both the industry and consumer. So
Sure.
there, and something Milan mentioned that we love to do in the gaming industry. Milan talks about gamification in the fintech space, and that is something gaming companies love to do. So apart from just consumers playing games, we gamify everything on the platform. Like when somebody logs in or plays a game, loses a game, or completes a mission, or refers a friend. So we gamify all journeys of a consumer life cycle in the gaming system, and there's very interesting machine learning models that work behind the space. So a consumer is usually driven by this life cycle of he's onboarded, then he's engaged, and then he's monetized, and then he churns, and then he reactivates. And so each stage of of life cycle. There are nice machine learning applications that we build into it, and this can be applied across different industries, not just fintech. It applies across travel, e-commerce, and a host of other industries. So in terms of opportunity,
Sure, Prashant.
and there's a lot of
Prashant, thanks for that perspective. I'm sorry I have to kind of butt in there, but we're just about to run out of time, and I just wanted to get Saurabh's perspective as well as a quick wrap up from all the panelists. But thanks for those perspectives. I think it went really granular, and we appreciate that. Saurabh, as an entrepreneur in the space, you've also got your investor sitting here, so it's I don't know whether it's a plus or minus, but where do you see the opportunity? Where do you see the evolution opportunities for you over the next 3 to 5 years, so that probably Saloni and some of our other colleagues in the domain are going to rush to put in that next round into your company. So talk us through that, and in the interest of time, after that, if you could just give us the next 3 big things that you think are going to change the industry over the next 3 to 5 years, and then we just go around the panel with their 10 seconds answers on those 3 points before we wrap up.
I think I think the comparison you made at the start, right, where anything, so we're talking about why this sector becomes really big and why it becomes interesting. And if you look at an absolute first principle, anything that has a lot of value which is collectively placed by society becomes, of course, very appreciative as an investable asset. So in gaming itself, I would sort of divide that and do a comparison with what happened in e-commerce in 2013-14 somewhere in India, where there were 2 to 3 major inflection points, right? Cash on delivery became a very major inflection point in e-commerce, which sort of really jump-started penetration in that sense. Penetration really took off. Selection became very big there. There was a lot of ease of discovery, and people became more comfortable with shopping at that point of time. In gaming, if I were to draw a parallel, there are 2 major trends that I see, and I see a lot of it playing out. So one of that I see playing out on Elo, and one I start seeing it in the sector itself. The number one is social. I mean, one of the panelists mentioned about community, and I think gaming is one of those sectors where truly communities can be built, right? Because what is a community? It's essentially commonality meeting conversations, right? I mean, you have some commonalities where it's either around a stream or it's around a topic which everyone's passionate about. Maybe we are all passionate about PUBG, or it's about something which is about an indigenous game or a cultural element to it that you're really sort of passionate about. So there's a community that gets built around that. And something we're observing which really translates into social is gaming is becoming a means of striking conversations with people while in the game itself. So that makes it so much bigger than just a casual gameplay. You're actually making more friends there. You're interacting. It's becoming about social interactions and stuff, which makes the sector so much bigger than anything else in that sense. And that's why, while it is at ground zero, it is absolutely at a sunrise point where it will really get an inflection point after this, because a lot of people are going to have a lot of interactions in these games. You're going to have multitude of social plays emerging out of that, and a lot of niche plays will start coming in. So we've seen a lot of interest around female social angles here, where 55-57% of our users happen to be female, streamers coming in there, interacting with each other, etc. That's a one huge angle that I've seen play out. Second is micropayments. I mean, for any sector to be very large and viable, micropayments or payment infrastructure needs to be built in. And one thing that we've seen play out very interestingly is gaming used to earlier be very dependent on only ad revenues. It was an advertising heavy monetization. But now if you see, people are more comfortable with in-app purchases, with micropayments, which are lesser quantum. It won't be your 400, 500 kind of quantums, but more frequency, higher frequency in nature. And that sort of happened with UPI, more comfort with in-app purchases, etc., which will genuinely lend more comfort into the monetization aspect of gaming. So these 2 trends playing out is what I see, where gaming will essentially become much bigger than what it is right now, and hopefully become much more valuable for all of us.
Excellent. Thanks, Saurabh. So, just to wrap up, the 3 big keywords, just the keywords, 10 seconds for the gaming industry for the next 5 years.
So social, community, and content coming together. These 3 is going to be my sort of big one.
Wonderful. Thanks, Saurabh. Prashant, your 3 keywords for the next 5 years for the industry?
it's going to be technology in terms of product differentiation that you can make. That's the
Excellent. Thanks. Sajan, how about you? What would you?
For me, it's going to be IPs, own IPs, talent, and broadcasting.
All right, thanks. Sriram, your top three keywords.
I think it has to be responsible advertisement, responsible gaming, and I'll say responsible advertisement one more time.
For me, Indian games becoming global. So globalization of Indian games. So which is very India centric. So that's one. Okay, cultural India culture being kind of brought to light as far as India is concerned, and then convergence of gaming with other tech platforms.
All right, thank you. And Saloni, last but not the least, your three keywords.
Sure, the platformization of gaming, the rise of domestic mid-core India first gaming content, and the rise of in-app purchases, virtual gifting, and tipping.
Great. So, we're out of time completely. These are kind of topics that, probably require 2-hour session. And, we'll probably circle back to all of you to probably get, deeper granular thoughts from you for some of our other, engagements. And we look forward to seeing you again on a BW platform. But thank you so much for your time. Great perspectives, great depths, and great diversity. And we appreciate you taking the time today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.